So now let's put in place an intervention.
There we go.
Okay. There we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, one intervention that we could put into place would be to lower someone's chance of becoming overweight. The chance per year, their hazard. Another thing we could do would be lower their hazard of going from overweight to obese. Another thing we could do is we could investigate interventions that would cause someone to go back from obese to overweight. Which would your preferences be amongst those? Or we could do something over on the diabetes side if you want to. But I was thinking about sort of weight as a predecessor to that. So which of those would you like to do? Which of those would you like to pursue? Or all of them? Sorry? Okay, turn them into overweight? Okay, good. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, okay. I'm thinking about the best way to pursue this, given this group. It's a simple enough thing to do at a basic level. It's a simple enough thing to hard code it, but I'm averse to hard coding. I would like to have the intervention vary on a per scenario basis. So one intervention could be captured in one scenario, another intervention on another scenario. So rather than hard coding it into the model that we have an intervention in place, we can run one scenario, we'll see one intervention, another scenario, another intervention. We can apply our intervention to this subpart of the population, this age group in one, this age group in another. Very common need, right? Okay. Okay. Let's do it. Let's do it. Great. So I will show you something that is extremely powerful with any logic. That will allow for targeted interventions and allow those interventions to be specified on a per experiment basis. And we'll use this to impose the interventions of which we have just spoken. Ladies and gentlemen, let us compute. Okay. So we're going to sit down and we're going to do something that very few AnyLogic users know about. And no, it's not because as soon as they saw it, they became non-AnyLogic users. Don't even think, no. Okay, so this is what we're going to do, and it's really beautiful. Okay, here we go. We're going to go to main. Remember, experiments. Tell main what assumptions to use. Through what? Through what? How do they communicate the assumptions to main? Through parameters. So we're going to use some parameters, but we're going to use a special type of parameter. Okay? Watch this. Okay, so we're going to go to the palette, and we're going to drag in a parameter, and this is going to be I'm looking for the right name for this. Is a person eligible for intervention? Okay? And this parameter is going to be a different sort of parameter than we've ever seen before. We're going to go to the advanced area, and this is going to be what's called a dynamic parameter. Its type will be Boolean. And it is going to take as an argument person who's going to be of type what? What do you think? Type person. And it's going to determine for us, is this person subject to the intervention or not? So we can simulate in one experiment interventions that focus on the 10 to 14 year age group. Another experiment will focus on those who are 65 and up. Another intervention will focus on those who have a certain history of obesity.
Can you just scroll that screen up?
Yeah, thank you. So this is what we have. This parameter is a Boolean parameter, and in the advanced area, we'll make it a dynamic parameter.
You mean a Boolean type and a person parameter, I think is what you meant to say.
It's a Boolean type for the parameter, yeah, and it takes a person as an argument, yeah, and it's a dynamic parameter. Are people, who needs Delianian help? Nolian help? Okay. Okay, so that's one thing. We're halfway done with the weirdness. It's actually not it's well, I was gonna say it's not weird, it's beautiful. Okay. Okay, so the next thing we're going to add is, so this is going to be like a function, is person, and we're going to be able to set that function on a per experiment basis. The next parameter is going to be perform intervention on person. And this is going to be, by contrast, an action parameter. But once again, it'll be a person. And I'm going to give this one a more descriptive name. I'm actually going to go back and change that other one to have a more descriptive name. This is going to be person on whom to intervene. I don't like to leave a lot of ambiguity. Say it like it is. Okay? So, this parameter, is going to be an action parameter. It will take a value. We're going to ask it, here's a person, and it's going to say, yes, sir. And that person we're going to give it is of type person, and it's going to do its job. It's going to intervene upon them. For some experiments, that intervention will be bariatric surgery. For others, it'll be lowering the risk of becoming overweight. Okay, let's go back to that, is person eligible for intervention. I want to give this a better name. This will be like candidate person. This is basically the person that we're testing. Are they eligible or not? They're a candidate, and we're going to return true if they what? What do you think from its name? If we return true, it's going to be an indication that they what? That, well, it's going to be an indication that that candidate has been approved for intervention. If we return false, it's an indication that that candidate has been turned down for intervention. Okay? Okay. I know this is stretching you. Not for the first time today. gave it a certain dramatic significance. Okay. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, computing we are. With those two places in place, we're going to put into place the coup de grace. And then we will reap the fruits of our efforts. Okay? So, I want to put into place a mechanism so that when this model starts up, we're going to go through each person in the population, test, are they eligible for the intervention? If so, perform it on them. And I want to do that at the start time of the model, and I want to do it in a way that's visually obvious. I can see it. When I browse the model, I can see there's something sort of going on there from a nice name. How do I do that? I can put in place and what? It has 5 letters in it. Begins with an E. Ends with a T.
Event.
Event. Darn right. Darn right. Okay. That will not be the last game of Hangman we're going to play. And the next one will come with a biographical story. Okay. So we're dragging an event, and this will be called perform initial. That'll be called perform intervention. Okay. Perform intervention. This will be a timeout event. It will occur one time at time 0. Now, how will this event work? Suppose I wanted to go through each person in the population in turn, one by one by one, and want to test whether that person was eligible for an intervention. What construct would I use to go through each person in the population? A what? I'll give you a hint. It has an L, 2 O's, and a P. A loop. Good. Good. So I'll come back to that in just a minute. Okay, so we're going to do a for loop for each person, P person in the population. I promise, after you write this code, I know it's just unpleasant, but I'm going to give you a bit of a story that Jeff thinks is a pearl of a story. Jeff, is it worth the code?
It is.
Okay.
Trust me.
Okay.
All day, not
Okay. Okay. So for each person in the population, we're going to do this. Watch this. If is person eligible is, oh, sorry. What am I doing? Okay. Is person eligible for intervention? Who's going to be the candidate person? Well, it's the person we're looping through. So maybe I'll make this clear. I'll call it candidate person in the population. For each candidate person, we're going to go through. And if they are eligible for the intervention, then what are we going to do for them? Could you tell me this? What are we going to do? Apply the intervention. Perform intervention on person. Boom. And on whom will we intervene? Candidate person. It's the same person. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going through this population here. Going through each person in the population, we're testing, are they eligible? And then if so, we're performing an intervention. Now, where does this is person eligible? Where is this perform intervention? From whence did those come? Where did those, have you seen those before? Did any logic create those for your sustenance? From where did they come? Okay, and who created those parameters? You did. no less than you, these things here, they're operating like what? What does that look like? They're operating like function. And that's the beauty. Each scenario is going to be able to specify there are rules for who's eligible and what intervention will take place on a person who is eligible. Each separate experiment will be able to use different assumptions about this, and it will perform the job. You don't know what grief your folks are being spared. Hard coding in our interventions to the model itself means that it operates across all of the different experiments. We can't have one experiment where it's enabled, one without. And there are ways to accomplish that by passing in things to say perform it or not, but it's ugly. This lends itself to an epitome of elegance. It's sublimity of beauty, at least to my tired eye. But I promised you a story. Are you comfortable with this? Make your code compile. The Nolian cavalry is on the horizon. He stands ready. Are people compiling it? Is it okay? Okay. So do you want the story? Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, one more person is there. Okay, so I'm going to tell my personal narrative. 40 years ago, in a land far away, the world was a different place and I was half my height, roughly. At least to a binary order of magnitude. And I was enrolled in my first computer course. So I had actually I was really interested in computers, but at that time computers were big things owned by institutions, and there's no way my family had any realistic chance of owning a computer. We were not a family of great means. But I did get a hold of a programmable calculator, and I spent many a pleasant day at summer camp in the pine-cloaked forest, programming this calculator, getting it to, in assembly language, getting it to do some calculations and so on. And that was neat, but it wasn't a full computer. After all it could display is one partial line of numbers. Okay. So I heard about that our high school was going to offer as a summer course, a course on computers. So I went to this course. So I was really interested. I wanted to sign up for this. And we went down to sign up for this course. I think my brother was going to sign up for a different course. And we saw various things that I was really scared about. I was going into this high school, the doors were really tall and so on, and I was going through it, and people were doing welding. I remember seeing these sparks flying and so on. I thought, oh man, I'm in the world of the big kids now. And we went in there and signed up. And so I went to this computer class. And I think everyone else in the computer class, it seemed to me at least, they were all 40 or up or 50 or up. I mean, some of them even had gray hair, right? So I was in this computer class. And I was something like 8, 7, something like that. In this computer class, surrounded by these older folks, some retirees, I think, and there were all these computers there, and that excited me. There were all these teletype terminals that would spit out this long paper, you know that? Spit out paper and do calculations. And there were some of these terminals, these CRTs, that you could program with these keys that exhibited resistance. So I just loved it. I would go over and I would probe these computers. And honestly, I don't even remember what language I used, but I was interacting with them, and I was in my element, and I was happy. I was happy. And no, I wasn't using any logic. Anyway. So the summer passed quickly in this course, and I just loved it. But then, not all was fun and games, it turns out. And the teacher, who seemed like he was 10 times older than me or something like that, he said one day, we're gonna have a final exam. I didn't know what a final exam is. It sounded bad. It sounded like they're gonna test us. And so he said, don't worry, we're gonna have a review session for this exam. Okay. So go to the review session. I'll hear something about what this exam is. So I went to the review session, and I was sitting there. I remember these long rows of these chairs. They had these things. Most of them were not left-handed, as I was. They were for right-handed. Sitting there on these hard surfaces, and he was pacing back and forth in a way that might have imparted itself on his young charge. And he was walking back and forth between the rows of chairs, which really scared me, because I didn't want him to ask me a question. But then he was asking questions here and there through the conversation, and asking people about one thing or another. And then he stopped in front of me, and he looked down at me. And I looked up at him. I was scared. And he said, suppose I wanted to go through numbers from 1 to 100. 1, 2, 3, 4, for each successive one, and I wanted to print out that number. What would I use to do that? I looked at him. I don't think I said anything. He said, I'll give you a hint. It has an L, 2 O's, and a P. And I looked at him and I said, pool! And I don't remember his full reaction, but I remember it in embarrassment to this day. I don't know if I got a single number, that single question right on that exam. I don't know what I was thinking, but here I am. Right? So that's the L, 2 O's, and a P story. And believe me, if I could do it, you can do it. At least you didn't say pool. And it won't take 40 years, okay? Exactly. So, formative experiences. Loops aren't as bad as you think. Okay. Especially if you start knowing how to spell. Great. So, this is our little thing. And now, all that remains is for us to put in place a little bit of mechanism to actually leave the ground open for an intervention, and then we can actually run some scenarios. Define and run some scenarios. So, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, am I holding people from...
There, but where do you feel the natural break here?
This is probably a good time. This is a good time, yeah. We're going to do some really exciting stuff, and this will lure them back. Okay. We're going to see the effects of interventions. Good.
Can I get you to move that model down so I can just see I'm not sure I've got all my discount factors coming up the right thing.
Sure. So go over here and then go like this.
Perfect, yes.
And then I'll lower this a little bit. Boom. Like that?
Thank you, yes.
Yeah. And maybe I'll actually go over. Thank you. Go over here. Okay, and I'm going to just stop this.